the focus and the politics and the back and forth that we've been seeing over the last 24 hours is all around the women's bill, the women's reservation bill. Are we any more wiser now this morning as to what the contours of that bill are going to look like?
Well, the copy of the bill has not yet been circulated to any other member of parliament. So I suspect what's going to happen is that when the House reconvenes in the new building, the new Sansad Bhavan, that is where that landmark or the historic announcement is likely to be made by the government. No clarity yet whether it's the Prime Minister himself or the Parliamentary Affairs Minister does so. That's usually the norm. Maybe the Prime Minister gets up to speak. We've already heard Sonia Gandhi say that this is her bill. Of course, this is going to be seen as a historic moment. And I think the Prime Minister indicated this enough, Zaka, when he was speaking inside the Lok Sabha yesterday, when he said in the new Sansad Bhavan, there will be an historic moment. So maybe this is the historic moment because this was cleared by a sudden late evening cabinet meeting. Normally cabinet briefings are held on Wednesday, but it was held on the first day of Parliament on Monday. What we have certainly been picking up sketchy details, it's not going to be the bill which was passed in 2010, likely to be withdrawn. And there's going to be a new tweaked, improved version, to use the words of the government. What will be interesting to see is whether there's going to be a reservation again within reservation, whether there's going to be a place for the OBCs within a larger concept of reservation for both women and as well as the OBCs, and whether it's going to be called only the Women Reservation Bill. So I guess we'll come to know post 12 or post 1 actually, once the House reconvenes in Lok Sabha.
All right, they'll of course have to circulate the copy of the bill to all members of Parliament. We'll also be going across to our special guest, Nalin Mehta, contributing editor with Network 18, is here in our studios. Sanjeev Srivastav, veteran journalist, is also joining us. But before I get to our guest, I want to get in a word from Aman Sharma and from Arunima as well. Aman, I think I think one of the leaders said it this morning, the devil is really in the detail. The big contention, of course, is this whole business of quota within quota, something that the Supreme Court has also frowned down upon in the past, in the context of course, OBC and SC/ST reservations, how is the government going to navigate this whole business of quota within a quota? We've seen how much this whole creamy layer business, how much contention and back and forth that had led to, even for economically weaker sections. EWS quota had to be kept separate outside of the 27% reservation for OBCs. So how is the government going to deal with this whole tricky question of quota for SC/ST and OBC women within the larger ambit of women's reservation?
Absolutely, Zaka. That is a very, very tricky issue. If we go back to the UPS bill of 2010, in the UPS bill, it was said that the 33%, the seats which are reserved for the SC/ST community, about 130 seats in the Lok Sabha, out of them 33% will be reserved for women. But what was the contentious point even then was that the parties like SP and RJD said that what about the OBC community? What about the women OBCs? Why have they not been given that reservation? So will this government now bite the bullet and actually say that SC, ST and OBC women, all three will be included in the women's reservation quota? We'll have to wait for the details, but I can tell you this much, that this has been discussed by the government during the deliberations over this bill. This point did come up. Now, whether this reflects in the final bill or not, that will have to wait for the final bill to come. The other point has been that does this bill become more comprehensive than the UPS bill in terms of, because the UPS bill had covered the Lok Sabha and the legislative assemblies. So does this government go beyond that and also cover the Rajya Sabha and the legislative councils? So that is the second contentious issue. Will this government bite the bullet on that as well? And because, it is being talked that this bill could only become a reality post 2026 delimitation. Yeah. So is the government thinking long term and saying, okay, the entire parliament, and there's a hint, I think, in the Prime Minister's word statement yesterday in the House also, when he said that out of about 7,500 MPs who have been in this House, there are about 600 women MPs from both houses. So in a way, the government is seeing the parliament as both houses, not just the Lok Sabha, but does that reflect in the bill when it comes to women reservation remains to be seen, Zaka.
All right. Arunima is also there with us in this whole business of political credit war that's already started. I believe Sonia Gandhi gave a soundbite this morning saying that this is our bill. They're bringing back our bill. Again, how does the government navigate this? Because clearly, if the Modi government is taking all the pains to bring this bill, shepherd up the numbers to make sure it passes, surely they're not going to give political credit for this to the opposition.
Well, Sonia Gandhi said "Hamara hai," when she was asked about the women's reservation bill. But kya ye bill hamara hai? Is this the UPA era bill? That's a big question. And all hints seem to be that the government is not bringing in the same bill that was passed earlier. The hint seems to be that this is going to have clearly the stamp of the Narendra Modi government. What was the reason that this bill did not become a reality earlier? It was parties like the Samajwadi Party, the RJD, the BSP, parties whose entire politics is around the caste dynamics in our society. They had demanded that there be provision made for caste, based reservation as well, if you're going to give reservation. If you recall, Sharad Yadav then had said, he used a very derogative phrase for women with short hair and said, are these urban women going to decide how our rural women and their issues going to be decided as well? So that was the mindset. But from there up till now, we've come a long, long way, Zaka. Now you're saying most political parties are on board. And I think that is what the government is going to utilize. Even if there are provisions which make some parties uncomfortable, the mood is such in the country and the government is going to make good of that mood to make this women's reservation bill a reality. The only thing that is to be avoided is what we have seen at the panchayat level. Panchayat pati, where the spouse stands up for the women sarpanch. That kind of a situation has to be avoided at the Member of Parliament stage. But I think that is also work in progress. Once the law is brought in, the implementation of the law will also eventually happen, is what the government believes.
All right, Arunama Aman, thanks very much for joining us. We'll come back to you in just a bit. Senior journalist Neerja Chaudhary is also joining us. But Nalin Mehta here in our studios. Nalin, there is a whole thread to why the Modi government is going big with this whole women's reservation bill. When you go back to 2014, one of the first schemes the Prime Minister launched was Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Then, of course, there is this whole business of Ujjwala, Swachh Bharat. So there is this whole thread that there is a concerted attempt by the Modi government to cultivate a women vote bank. Do you see the push for the women's reservation bill? And the criticism is, what were you doing for 9 years? Why wait till the fag end of your second term to bring this bill? Can the Modi government come up with a coherent defense as to why this is part of this string of moves it's made over the last almost decade that it's been in power, creating that women vote bank or making sure, quoting that women vote bank more than creating it?
So, two things, Zaka. There is no question that over the last 8 or 9 years, the electoral dominance of Modi and the BJP nationally has been powered by the women's vote. As you said, there are several schemes. Ujjwala was one of them. Beti Bachao. Modi, in many of his speeches, often talks about from cradle to grave. There are multiple speeches, including Matritva Yojana and all of that. And you see, in the last 2-3 months alone, the cylinder prices have been dropped.
Yeah.
The Ujjwala Yojana has been extended to 75 lakh more beneficiaries beyond the 3 crore current ones. And now this one. I think.
Why are they doing this? Why are they doing this now? Targeting very, very specifically women.
So, because the women turnout in elections nationally now for the first time was more than the men turnout in 2019, number one. Number two, in election after election, we've seen that women voters are decisive, including in Karnataka where they voted against the BJP, by the way.
Yeah.
Now, the women's reservation, you can do multiple schemes. This bringing a bill like this changes the nature of politics very directly. And I think it would have been far more adversarial and far more difficult earlier. Near the election, I think the Prime Minister believes that this is a gambit that firstly, it will have widespread support among the larger constituency and among the women voters. The main opposition parties can't afford to be seen to be opposing it. The Congress, of course, wants to claim credit for it because they had introduced it earlier. And there are many in the India alliance who are not comfortable with this. So in that sense, it's good politics. If you are looking at Brahmastras before a national election, this is one of them.
Sanjeev Srivastava, the argument that can be made for the women's reservation bill, of course, it's an idea whose time has come. The Congress and the BJP, the two main national parties, have been backers of this idea for a very long time. And even in the India alliance, other than maybe an SP or an RJD, a couple of these heartland parties, most of them are on board the idea and the principle of women's reservation. Now, the method of it, you can go into the details. We'll do that once we get the draft of the bill. But in principle, how can they oppose the Modi government bringing the women's reservation bill?
I don't think anybody can oppose it. Even the parties which were opposed to it earlier, it was 2009-10, today is 2023. It's very difficult for even a Samajwadi party or any other party or BSP to go out in public and take a stand, or RJD. So everybody has to look like progressive, they have to look like modern, and they have to look like women friendly. Like Nalin was just saying, that the women turnout was higher than men in 2019. And it's all anecdotal data, but one gets gets to believe that women voters have been a big support base for the Modi government and the Prime Minister individually. So whether it was the gas scheme or toilets, or so there is a separate constituency which Modi has carved out over the years, which is amongst women. So again, yes, like men, women will be also divided between the right and left, between the more progressive and less or more nationalistic. But women form a core constituency. So I think this is what is being addressed. It will be work in progress. It will take time, like your correspondents were saying. It will only happen somewhere 2026 will be a post-delimitation. Only one point which I would like to make vis-a-vis what Arunima said, and it was a very valid point about Panchayat Pati. But again, there you have to look at things closely. When it started off, it was like 60, 70, 80% of the candidates were Panchayat Pati types, sponsored and prompted by the men in the family. But as these reforms have their own momentum and they have their own pace, and gradually that thing is weaning away. So now Panchayat Pati is not the norm, it is more of an exception.
Okay.
So that is the thing. So yes, initially you may find that in the constituencies which have been reserved for women, the powerful political family will put up a woman candidate, but gradually that powerful family will find and realize that the woman has become the power center of the family. Maybe it will take a decade or two, but that's how things change.
But we'll also have to wait to see the draft of the bill. Maybe there's a clause which says if you're the spouse of a sitting legislator or a parliamentarian, you're barred from contesting in that same constituency. So let's see. I don't know. We don't know the draft.
That would be again undemocratic in a manner of speaking.
Fair enough. But let me ask Neerja Chaudhary. The argument can be made from the side of the opposition as well. Like I said, Sonia Gandhi is already claiming credit for it, saying ye to hamara bill tha. Secondly, the Congress has also been, very consciously trying to court the women voter. I mean, look at what they've done in Karnataka with Griha Lakshmi, the 2,000 rupees for all women, the free bus passes for women, all of that. They're repeating the same promises in Telangana as well, and cylinders at 500 rupees. So the Congress can also claim that, contrary to what the perception is, that it's not just the Modi government that is courting the women voter, so is the Congress with all these guarantees.
Yes, the Congress, of course, passed it in the Rajya Sabha in 2010. But in the Lok Sabha, it got cold feet. But certainly the bill came during Deve Gowda's premiership. First was introduced at that time. So many people can take credit. And over the years, women politicians, women activists, women professionals across the board have supported it. They've held morchas, dharnas. So certainly the credit will go to them. But and to the Congress, remember, Rajiv Gandhi first thought of 33% women's reservation in the at the local level, panchayats and municipalities. That bill couldn't get passed during Rajiv's premiership because the states objected. It was passed during Narasimha Rao's prime ministership. So Congress, yes, has had a role. Other parties have had a role. But the fact is, it is going to be Narendra Modi who gets it passed. So who gets the credit? With everybody supporting the bill. And, today the situation is very different from what it was 27 years ago or even 10 years ago. Certainly, the credit taking by Narendra Modi may get diluted if other parties also support it wholeheartedly, which looks to be the case. And women have emerged as a very important or emerging as a very important vote bank on their own. Nitish Kumar has come back to power because of the women constituency and the issue of prohibition, which is very controversial in Bihar. But certainly that's had a role to play. Narendra Modi, as Sanjeev was saying, yes, women have been a very important part of his constituency. And this is it going to be the game changer? That's a question mark. Will women in the rural areas be as excited as women in the urban areas? I think today, yes, because of so many years of the, reservation for women in the panchayati institutions. They've been sarpanches, and there is a corpus of women ready today to move into state assemblies and into parliament, which again was not the case 2 decades ago. So I think they've seen, as they were saying, Sanjeev and others, that panchpatis, wo letterhead bhi hota tha, jahan likha rehta tha. If woman was a sarpanch, there'd be a panchpati with his name, the husband's name. Today, the ghungat which was down there got lifted slowly, and is not there. And women are, in many places, taking decisions. And let me tell you, studies have also shown this, that women tend to focus more on education, health, the local rural issues that matter to families and women that much more. So I think we are at a very important, you are absolutely right. It's an idea whose time has come, and women have made it into every profession. They've broken glass ceilings. They're flying high. They've entered every difficult profession.
Yep, there are ISRO scientists, there are fighter pilots who are women.
Only profession where women have been kept out.
So
only 14.6% reservation in Lok Sabha and 12% in the Rajya Sabha. And that for a country marching forward, not good enough.
When the mission director of the solar mission, the Aditya L1 mission, is a woman, when women fighter pilots are shepherding our fighter planes, the F-18s and the Rafales, there's no reason why the parliamentary representation of women should be at an abysmal 15%. So clearly, like I said, and Neerja was echoing that, this is an idea whose time has come, and no political party wants to be seen on the wrong side of it. But I'm just curious about the politics of it, Nalin, because there used to be a time in the 90s where the average BJP voter, the average Hindutva voter, was seen as this angry young man who believed in their cause célèbre, the Ram Mandir and UCC and Article 370. Women's reservation, even though it was mentioned in the BJP's manifesto, certainly in 2014 and in 2019, it was seen more as a tick the box kind of an issue. It was not something that was central for the BJP and its ideology and its politics. By putting its political capital behind this bill, is it that this is low-hanging fruit and therefore it's easy to get done? Or is it that they believe that this is the swing block, that this is the vote that could make or mar 2024?
So I think you're absolutely right. Look, I think we have to see it in the context of the larger electoral constituency the BJP has built. There is a Hindutva constituency, as you pointed out. That's a core constituency. But that's not enough for the BJP to win the kind of mandates they've been getting at the national level and in many states. What Modi has done, he's built a women constituency, he's also built a poor constituency. He's also had changed the class dynamics of politics in that sense by all the direct benefit transfers and all of that. Now, those other voters, it's the poor, which was not the case with the older BJP. It is the case with the newer BJP, and the women, which are giving it the extra ballast, along with non-aligned voters, middle-of-the-road voters who are not ideological, who've added to the core constituency of Hindutva. So it's all like an aggregation of multiple vote banks, right? Now, the Women's Reservation Bill is a natural progression of the Prime Minister's politics. You can't accuse him of not having addressed women constituencies so far. Going back to his time as Chief Minister of Gujarat. He started all women Mahila Sabhas in his second term as Chief Minister of Gujarat. So why now? Neerja was saying, I was listening to her very carefully, yes, there is a history to this. It was Devi Gowda who brought it in under Manmohan Singh. It was brought in, you can go back to Rajiv Gandhi with the Panchayati Raj and so on. But and everybody will want to claim credit, but ultimately, who pushed it through? If it happens in this parliament, Modi will legitimately take the claim, just as Modi has taken the claim for the Ram Temple. The Supreme Court allowed it. The Congress also supported the Ram Temple eventually, but who's getting the credit? Political credit for it. So in that sense, it's a political weapon which is difficult to fight.
So, Sanjeev, one of the points that Nalin made earlier was you go back to the Karnataka election and this whole business of the cylinder price at over 1,000 rupees was a very, very critical, almost election-defining issue. Women came out in large numbers. When we were on the campaign trail, a lot of women were talking about gas prices. And the Modi government has responded to that. They've cut the price of gas. And now, if this Women's Reservation Bill goes through, you can be rest assured that they will go to town to try and take credit for it in a way that some of this women constituency and some of this criticism that they've been facing over, gas prices and other women-related issues will they be able to sort of blunt that criticism? Because price rise at the end of the day hurts women more than it hurts men.
So if anybody right now is capable and motivated enough and has all the means to capitalize on a good move, then it is Modi and BJP. So I think but this question itself is a difficult one to answer, Zaka, because just like you were saying, whether it is Sarpanch Pati or women empowerment, or like you were saying about mission directors and how women are taking center stage on different fields and getting more and more empowered in their own way, it will also translate that this move, quite a substantial number of women, they are already voting for Modi. So the issue is, will Modi and BJP get the fence sitters, and will they be able to convert those on the other side to their side with this move? Now, that's a question we don't know the answer to, because with empowerment comes awareness. With awareness comes the ability to take decision. We now know that more and more women across the country are not guided by their male counterparts in the family or the male head of the family as to whom they should vote for. So they are taking independent decisions. So similarly, despite the move, like in so many other areas we see, the voter can be very cruel and ungrateful. They take something and they don't feel grateful enough to reciprocate to vote. And that's the reason that the reveries don't always work. That's the reason we are debating so much as to what will be the outcome in Rajasthan, despite all the efforts of Mr. Gehlot. Of course, he has come in contest. So that's a difficult one to answer. But like I said in the beginning, if anyone is there to capitalize and make sure that they do get that vote.
No, but creating or quoting women as a vote bank is
and
something.
Just a very quick point.
Yeah,
quick point I would like to make, that while we discuss the pros and cons and the effect and outcome of this bill, we should really take a pause and celebrate the democratic fabric of the country. We were the first country in the world to have universal adult suffrage in 1947, when the idea was unthinkable.
Yeah.
And I think we are perhaps the first one to have women reservation. So despite all the problems, hiccups, we talk so many constraints, in some ways the Indian democratic juggernaut is also quite unstoppable. And it takes its own pace and momentum.
I think that's a fair point. We'll have to do this comparison to see, in other advanced, more developed countries, is there reservation for women? Of course, the women's representation in their legislatures is far higher than the 15% in our Lok Sabha. But Nirja Chaudhary, again, I'm linking it to politics because, in the run-up to this special session, we were talking about, a bill that will change the name of the country from India to Bharat. We were talking about a bill that will ask for one nation, one poll, all seemingly political, all seemingly, on the face of it, controversial. But it looks like this session will be remembered most for the Women's Reservation Bill if and when it's brought up tomorrow in the new Parliament building. How and why do you think the Modi government has gone for that as opposed to all of what we were talking about in the run-up to this session?
Look, there are many things that the Modi government will go for. This is one of the important cards they've decided to play, because women's constituency is an important constituency for them already. They want to consolidate their hold on it. I think the OBC constituency, particularly the most backward amongst the OBC, is another constituency they would be eyeing. So both these constituencies, because they know last time in 2019, they had peaked all over North India and they haven't made gains in South India or in the East. So where are the numbers going to come from to be able to retain their 303 seats or even, hit the majority mark? So this has been a reason for worry for them. And they would like to pull to them those who are fence sitters today. One quick point I want to make is that just the mere enactment of the Women's Reservation Bill, important though it is, and it will create a pro-woman mahal in the country, is not going to be good enough to lessen the pain that families and women are feeling today. They are hurting because of price rise and joblessness. That is a fact if you talk to people across the board. And Mr. Modi, like his predecessors, Indira Gandhi had said this: unless you get the votes of the poor people, you're not going to be able to win elections. VP Singh had said this. poor have to be on your side. And Narendra Modi, from day one, his first speech, I remember, after he was sworn in 2014, referred to the poor. I think the BJP's target used to be the upper caste, Brahmin, Baniya, but he very consciously moved towards the poor and winning them over.
Yeah.
So I think how the poorer women, the rural women also react to this will be very interesting to watch. But I suspect that they will also be enthused. So it is going to be, it could be a game changer for them, plus with other things also. It's not the only thing that will be a game changer. But, you know, much will depend on how the Congress also moves. You know, everybody will try and take credit, no doubt about it. And
Exactly.
I think they have a right to, because they have pushed for the bill over the decades. But the fact is they didn't get it through. In 2010, in Lok Sabha, the UPA decided that because the OBC leaders were against it, and Mulayam Singh Yadav, Lalu Yadav, even Sharad Pawar, I'm told. And I think not because of patriarchal issues, much more because their seats could go to the reserved quota for women. Now, it'll be interesting to see whether the bill that the government brings is the same bill, or is it a bill that has added more, you know, seats which go to women are reserved for women.
Okay, I just want to underline as we take a break that even if this were to be passed, what we're hearing is this will be in effect from post-2026. So after the delimitation exercise happens, so the first general election possibly, which could see 33% seats reserved for women, is not the 2024 election, it could be the 2029 election. So I'm going to take a quick break on that note. What we're expecting in the next few minutes, the Prime Minister is expected to walk with a copy of the Constitution from the old Parliament building to the new Parliament building. At 11 a.m., there will be a special function at the Central Hall of the old Parliament building. We're counting down to that. Quick break. We'll see you right on the other side.